So we don't just want to weld this metal two pieces together, because if I were to just weld like this right here, what you would see is happen is rust, probably within a month. So you want to have a layer of protection. Now there's two ways to do this. You can use weld through primer, which you just spray over the paint, weld them together, it conducts, so it'll weld and everything around it will be protected. That's the more expensive way. But if you want to go to cheaper way, you would just put these pieces together, you would drill your holes for the plug welds, mark with dot on here where those plug welds are going to be, and then tape it off and paint everywhere around it. That's what I used to do, but now I'm just using weld through primer because it protects, it conducts, and it's way easier. It's just the more expensive option because weld through primer isn't cheap. So I'm going to prep this piece right here to be welded on. Now when I say prep metal, all I mean is make sure there's paint is off it, and then make sure all the grease, grime, and dust is removed from it. So acetone, which you guys have all heard of, does a really good job at making you, one, feel loopy, and two, removing all that dust and grime. So if you just rub it over, you'll see how it just removes everything. And that way you have a nice layer of adhesion for your primer. Now we'll do the same for this piece right here. Just wipe it all on the edges like that. And look at all that dirt. You would never know that's there unless you wiped it. Now, this paint is the weld through primer. This is made by Eastwood. There's a couple brands that make it, but you're gonna be upwards of $20 for one can. How it works is there's a metal in here. I'm not sure what it is, what type of metal. It has copper and zinc in it. So that way, when you spray it on here, it coats it. And now this metal is fully protected. So when I go to weld it on, I'll weld, it'll conduct the weld, and everywhere else will be protected. Why I don't have a mask on, I don't know. I should wear one because I'm going to take days off my life exponentially. The good thing about weld through primer is it does dry super quick, which is nice. Usually primer takes 20-30 minutes, but this dries, I want to say, in 5 minutes. Enough for you to weld it at least. Like a good dry, not really, but enough for you to weld it for sure. Now we will do this part right here. And it is a waiting game till we can weld it. All right, so now that these pieces are primed with weld through primer, we can actually weld them together, which is the scary part because although metal is super manipulatable, is that a word? I'm not sure. Once you weld pieces like this, it's a pain just to remove it. So you want to get it right, which I probably don't have it right. But you have these alignment holes on here to help you out, so should be fine. Now I love using these clamps because this one holds it nice and flat on a long distance compared to these clamps, which only hold a point. And these are even better because it holds it nice and flat on a long distance, but also allows you to weld in the middle of it. So if I were to put this like this, it clamps it nice and tight. And we are going to run our first weld up top right here and hope it conducts. Now, this welder is heavy as hell. I'm using a spot welder from Harbor Freight because it doesn't require any material. You just use the material you're actually welding. But you do have to chisel or grind this tip sometimes because it gets flat. So you have to make it pointy and prep it. Sometimes, not all the time. And you can replace these tips, and I do have some replacements, but it's not time yet. All right, so let's see if we can get this to conduct because it is hard through the weld through primer. All right, and it worked really good that time. So, as you guys can see, those first welds are in there and they're holding pretty well, and it just melts the metal together, and it gets really hot, and I love the way that is looking. Perfect. Sometimes you have to play with this welder to get it to take through the weld through primer, and it sparks, but it always usually takes, so that's the nice part about it. And I love this welder because for plug welding, you only can do so many. You gotta drill the holes, and you gotta know all the weld locations before you actually start. With this, you can just put as many as you want. Now, as far as what's stronger, I would say plug welding is probably stronger, but this, you're not gonna have any problems with either. Now, if you're scared to use this, you could use a mix of plug welding and spot welding. Now, for those of you who don't know, a plug weld is simply punching a hole in a sheet of metal or drilling a hole with a 1/4-inch bit, putting it on top of another piece of sheet metal and filling the hole with weld with your MIG welder and grinding the rest off. I began to work down the edge of the door jamb, spot welding it all together with that Harbor Freight gun. I had to clean off the tip a little bit in the process. So now you guys can see that very hot still. This piece is welded on here and it is not coming off anytime soon. And that is why I love that spot welder. So if I give it a nice pull, It's welded. It's on there. So now you guys can all see that this piece fits right in here. It slots through the metal on the rocker where the rocker sits to the flat piece, and it just slots through and it corners right up with this. And it has these tabs at the bottom, which you can weld in once you're ready to weld it. But you just want to make sure it's aligned with the door. And when I originally took the location from this, it's 35 and 7/16. Everyone is a little different, but you measure from to here when you cut off the original. And I know that this is supposed to be right here. And besides getting that right, you just want to make sure your door gap is right. So when you put all this together. So now we're going to weld this side of things, and then we can paint it and prep it a little bit more. A lot of paint and prep in this. So this is what all of our welds look like going down here. I think they look good, pretty neat. Some body work can take care of all that and make it look like nothing's there. If you want that original look, they did spot weld this from factory. Not as many as this, and definitely a bigger spot welder, but I'm not going for that original look. I'd rather this look like there's no welds there, so I'll do body work and make it look like it's just painted smooth, grind it perfectly to match. Now we're going to do this side. So I didn't grind this paint off, so you can see that it was a little harder to conduct here. But now that I know I gotta grind that off, I'm gonna grind this paint off and keep going, because these welds are on there pretty good, but I just wanna make sure. Everything on here is grinded off, and on the inside, I just forgot to do this one part. Now, a really nice tool to add to your collection is these die grinders. Now, this one is from Harbor Freight. Obviously, this one is too. I got a new one just in case this one goes, because this broke once that I had to fix it. That's why I had the triggers over here. But they're super nice. They make quick work of deburring metal and getting that paint off so you can quickly weld, compared to a grinder, which takes off too much metal. Now, you can put any kind of disc attachment you want on these. They just clamp in with a screw, so it's pretty easy. So now you guys can see here, our piece is fully welded together. Now this is a 3-piece layer, and it feels like one piece now. That's why I love that spot welder. It's super quick, easy work. So now I'm just gonna grind all of this down, and with that die grinder I just showed you, and I'll paint it black just so it's rust protected, and it can be welded into this internal frame. And the way it sits is just like this. So it'll come in here, and then it will sit right in here, just like this. Perfect. And sometimes the die grinder falls apart because morons like me don't put it on right. But it's super easy to put back together. It broke again. I don't know why it breaks. And that, my friends, is why I have that other one, because this one is not working too good. All right, let's try this again. It's little work like this that adds up when you're building a car. I've had this Mustang for 2 years now working on it, and I really thought I was gonna get it done in about 3 months. Obviously, that time frame was not accurate, but I'm glad to be working on it now and grinding in this little moment. I always go thinking, like, what's this car gonna be like when it's done? What's gonna be like driving on the road? How will it look? But the real reason I'm excited to finish it is so my dad can experience driving this car. He can take out his girlfriend and him, go get some dinner and have fun. Because that's the moment I'm truly excited for, being able to share this car with all my family and friends. And it would be the coolest experience in the world. You don't usually see these cars, so. Oh, I gotta put this inner structure. I just bolted the piece that I made to the top of the inner structure, but we have to put this on the car. Now, I also built this entire inner structure, and I got the unassembled Fastback kit, and you had to build your own inner structure. This comes assembled in the other kit, but it's way more expensive. That's right. The unassembled Fastback kit, where you had to weld all the pieces together, was $1,000 less compared to the assembled one. Not to mention, to save even more money with this build, I drove all the way to Kentucky so I could save $1,000 in freight shipping. It was over a 14-hour drive, and my dad and I rented a truck and strapped everything to the back, hoped it didn't fall out, and drove all the way home, but it was worth every single moment. Right, we got another truck rented. 2 years later from the last time we went to South Carolina, now we're going to Kentucky Mustang to get a Fastback kit. Got the truck rented, my dad's driving. 8 hours. This is the truck, and it's 2:33 a.m. right now. We're gonna convert the Mustang to a Fastback. He's already causing problems because he can't just let me make one video. You said Fastback? Fastback? Anything to say?
Fastback.
When we got to Kentucky Mustang, it was the coolest thing seeing the warehouse. The guys gave us a tour of everything inside and even showed us a few Fastbacks. Guys, we made it to Kentucky Mustang, all the way in Kentucky. 8 hours from home. I'm about to walk inside. A couple minutes till I'm a Fastback kit owner.
And then drive right back home.
And drive right back home.
This was the Fastback we saw, 67. It was actually the owners of Kentucky Mustang's car, and it was just so beautiful. It almost made the whole 16-hour drive worth it.
Super, super helpful. We ran into this truck and it's a little too small. We got a little more than we needed, but got everything fit in there. It's actually crazy. We gotta go get some more ratchet straps right now because it's a lot of stuff in here. Super kind people at Kentucky Automotive. Very thankful. Now, how the inner structure attaches to the car, because it is the car. This whole car is a frame itself. So we have up here, it welds to these points that I drilled all these holes for right here. And then it attaches to the bottom. Obviously, it's connected here. I just don't have it welded together yet. And then this wheelhouse right here is attached to this back trunk floor and this down trunk floor right here. It's welded all along this. Now, this structure is most sturdy right here. So this is the inner structure, and it actually welds to this wheelhouse. Now, besides that, once the quarter panel's on, it'll be welded to here and just provide structural integrity throughout. But we have to get these door gaps right because it is not going to be easy. I'm telling you guys right now.
Now, one thing you'll hear me say more than anything throughout this build is door gaps. They're the most important thing when you're building a car because if they're off, you're going to have to add metal and do a lot more work than you anticipated. So getting them right from the start is your make or break. When you're at a car show, the first thing I look at, or a professional looks at, is door gaps. Is it aligned properly? How's the alignment in the fenders? And the door gaps are the easiest to see flaws. So I am trying everything to get those right.
So as you can see right now, this is probably already too close, so it's gonna have to come back more, and that's where all the alignment comes in. So let's drill it in up here and see what we're looking like. Now for the drill, I just use a 1/4 inch self-tapping screws, and they're super nice because they hold position very well compared to clamps, and they don't take much effort to put in. That self-tapping is really nice and they're reusable. So boom, just like that. I have one more in here that I could put in right here. Next part is putting on this quarter panel right here. So let's do that. I'll set up the tripod and you guys can see me lift this heavy quarter panel that I keep denting and I'm gonna have to do a lot of body work on.
And now guys, putting on a quarter panel is not just slapping it on, welding it in, putting some screws in. No, you have to align it perfectly. If this quarter panel isn't perfect, it's gonna be a draw, an eyesore right away. And it's not cheap either. This is one of the most expensive parts of the car because it is the most distinguishing feature. So getting it on accurate and straight is everything. And it takes so much adjustment and metal manipulation that it's possible, but it's definitely on the hard list of things to do.
So this is what we're working with here. This is our door gap currently. And if I brought that to a car show, they kick my ass. So I gotta fix that. And it's just a lot of maneuvering right here, and it's not easy. And this is the part I dread. I'm grateful to be doing this, but I hate trying to get this door gap right. So a good life hack, if you are trying to get door gaps right, is to use paint sticks because they are the perfect width for a door gap. They're a little smaller than 3/16 of an inch, but if you get them in there and press it, it makes it easier. So if you just put this here and we're gonna tape it on here, then you know that this is right. As long as it's pressing against there, you have a great door gap. So I'm gonna put some in right now on this quarter panel here and literally probably just gonna tape them in like that. So we got a paint stick in here now, and now I'm going to drill my quarter panel into the pre-drilled holes I have in this door jamb here. And this way it will help align everything better. So these holes I've already had drilled for the first time I had it aligned, and it's gonna help me find my alignment again. Now, hope you guys can see this. Now this door gap is looking way better, but it's still a 2 out of 10. Obviously it's not touching down here anymore, but we still got a lot more work to do with raising this in the air and getting it set right. So one thing you have to do is clamp this inner structure inside to this quarter. And if you get one of these clamps and you just put it in here, it will actually pull this in. That's gonna have to be done because if you do that later on after you have fitment, it's gonna mess everything up because it's gonna be welded in here. Now, just doing that, hold it good enough to where that would satisfy some people, but not me. We have to raise this up even more, and it is not easy to do. So now I'm starting to think that the holes I have drilled up here for the self-tappers, they could be rough. And I didn't measure when I put those in. I just did on an estimate based off the old ones. But removing these will allow us to push and pull this whole thing back and forth. So essentially, this whole side is held in by nothing right now. But before I even attempt to move it, I just want to put my stick in there with some tape to hold it. This is why this is a two-man job. Now that's better up here. I'm satisfied with it up here, but it's super tight down here. So it needs to be pulled and pull it up right here. I'm going to literally just pull up on the side and clamp it. Now let's see how that door gap looks down here. So that is spot on, basically. Now that is exactly what I want. The only thing is, I think that it can be a little bit tighter. See how this pink stick is loose? I want it to be tight. Now, I like it because it's even, but this has to be pushed in down here, just like that. See, that messed everything up now. We have to raise it even more. And that looks like a little too much. It has to be pushed more in this way. Big gap. Now that is something right there. I don't know if you guys can see it good. That is something I'm definitely more happy with right there. It's flush down here. Flushes is gonna be down here, and then those body lines are pretty dead on right there. And it's nice and smooth up here. Yes, I like that a lot. If anything, it could be better down here. Just kind of gotta bend this flange, I think. I have to bend this flange out. I want to bend this quarter panel flange out so I can push it in more, essentially. Give it some love taps. There. That is a perfect door gap right there. That is perfect. 3/16. Now that is exactly what I want. And now if I'm smart, I'm going to clamp this down in place and hopefully I never have to touch it again. But that is perfect lines. Honestly, it hasn't been as good as that yet. And that is something I'm very happy with right there. Now that this door gap is exactly how I want it, I'm actually going to use these self-tapping screws that I was just talking about earlier. And I'm going to put a few into various spots along the car so I know that it will stay in position. So I'm gonna put this one through the quarter in the wheelhouse, so you just really just drill up like this. Double check your door gap just to make sure everything's okay. And then we can put in another right over here. And that's just so that position holds. Again, double check that gap. And then we'll put one more right here, and that should be held on there pretty good. Your next area of interest should be right here. So this is where the quarter panel connects to the inner structure, and you want to make sure it's clamped down nice and tight. Broken clamps. Now I'm going to drill a new hole up here to align everything. So I can cross out the old locations I have for these holes right here, and I will circle a new hole location like that. Another thing is, inside this inner structure, I originally had this piece attached to this piece. Now I don't. And the reason I did that is so I can get better fitment, because I realized the angle I had this was making all this wrong. So now I'm gonna drill a new guide hole in here for my metal, and it's gonna be way more accurate than it was before. I'm really liking the way that looks right there. So for today's work, that's all I'm gonna do, because that just took so many hours to get that door gap right, but I definitely had a way better day today looking back at it. I'll show you what it looks like when I put the drip rail in, which is another piece that has to go in before the roof goes in. And it basically just aligns into here. Gotta make sure that square fits for your trim. And it comes all the way in here. And then this is what the rain runs down when you're opening the window to smoke some cigarettes. So it'll come all the way like that. And no, this isn't what it will look like exactly, because you have a chrome piece that attaches to this outside here. And it's scaring me that I see this bend, because that's probably gonna mess with that chrome piece attachment a little bit. So I might actually take this screw out to relieve that bend in that metal. Now guys, that's as far as I got in this video, is ending with this drip rail, but there's going to be another video next week working on this Mustang more, and hopefully we can get this whole Fastback together and accurate so I can drive it in the summer. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your day.